long before the echoes of church bells or the call to prayer rose across the highlands and valleys of Ethiopia. There was another name spoken with reverence, a name whispered beneath sacred trees, sung in ceremonies by firelight, and called out in moments of joy and despair. That name was Waaq. To the Cushitic-speaking peoples, especially the Oromo, Waaq was the supreme being, the creator of all things, the God above the sky. His presence stretched beyond the clouds, yet his spirit was felt in every leaf, stone, and breath of wind. Once his name echoed across the land as naturally as the rivers flowed. Today it lingers mostly in memory, nearly forgotten by a world that moved on without asking why. Who was Waaq truly? Not a deity of wrath or domination, but a force of order, balance, and life itself. His universe was not ruled by fear, but shaped by reciprocity and respect. The faithful believed in a world where every element of nature was alive, imbued with spirit and in direct relationship with the divine. Mountains stood as sacred pillars. Trees served as altars. The earth was not a resource. It was a living testament to Waaq's will. What kind of wisdom did this belief carry, and what kind of people did it shape? In a time before scripture and centralized temples, spirituality was lived in rhythm with the land, in harmony with community, and with deep reverence for the seen and unseen. But how did this ancient faith fade? Was it erased by conquest, replaced by foreign gods, or merely pushed into the shadows of modernity? And more importantly, has it truly disappeared, or does it still survive, breathing in secret among elders, stories, and hidden rituals? Across parts of Ethiopia and Kenya, among the Oromo and other Cushitic peoples, traces of Waaq's worship endure. In sacred places untouched by time and in cultural systems like the Gada, his spirit has never fully left. This story is not one of loss alone. It is one of survival. Before the cross and the crescent came to define Ethiopian spirituality, there was Waaq, the god above the sky, whose memory still flickers in the soul of a people. This is the journey into that forgotten faith. Waaq is not a god of thunder or war, not a jealous ruler demanding submission. Waaq is existence itself, the original breath, the eternal sky, the uncaused cause from which all life springs. For the Oromo and other Cushitic-speaking peoples, Waaq was not confined to an image or a temple. He was invisible, infinite, and unshaped by human hands. His name meant the one above, the god of the endless blue sky who saw all, judged all, and sustained the world without needing to intervene in human affairs with violence. Waaq was near, yet never bound by form. He did not walk among men as a king might, but he hovered always, unseen but deeply felt. As the creator, Waaq is credited with forming the heavens, the earth, and everything within them. He fashioned not just the physical world, but the principles that govern it: life, death, harmony, and change. His power was not arbitrary. It flowed through natural laws, through rain and sun, through the growth of crops and the turning of seasons. He was not the god of a book, but the god of the wind in the trees, the guardian of sacred groves, and the spirit within ancestral bloodlines. In his cosmos, every living thing was infused with a portion of his essence. This divine energy animated the world and kept it in balance. Waaq was more than a creator. He was the sustainer of moral order. The world he made was not chaotic, but governed by Safu, a principle that means righteousness, balance, and proper conduct. To live in alignment with Safu was to live in harmony with Waaq's will. This moral order was not dictated by fear of punishment, but by understanding that all actions have consequences: social, spiritual, and environmental. Disharmony with nature, injustice against others, or disrespect toward elders were all seen as violations of Waaq's sacred structure. The punishment was not wrath, but imbalance. Sickness, drought, social conflict, all signs that the divine order had been disturbed. Because Waaq was a god of balance and reciprocity, people sought connection with him not through domination or sacrifice, but through gratitude and respect. Prayers were offered beneath trees or at mountaintops. Rituals focused on restoration, not appeasement. There was no clergy class that mediated between the divine and the people. Elders, diviners, and community leaders were respected for their wisdom and spiritual insight. But every person had a relationship with Waaq, rooted in conscience and tradition. This accessibility made the divine personal and collective at once. Waaq was both within and above, listening always but never manipulating. What made Waaq's universe so unique was its emphasis on equilibrium rather than domination. Unlike hierarchical faiths centered on obedience and sin, this spiritual system emphasized interconnectedness. Nature was not merely the backdrop for human life, it was part of the divine conversation. The trees were witnesses, the rivers had memory, and animals carried messages from the spirit world. To act selfishly, to destroy nature, or to break trust within the community was to rupture the flow of Safu, and thus to move away from Waaq. Even today, among those who still invoke his name, Waaq remains a symbol of purity, order, and resilience. He is remembered not through texts, but through oral tradition, lived ethics, and the land itself. His moral universe lives in how people treat each other, how they respect the earth, and how they make peace with the past. In Waaq's world, life is not a test, it is a trust, and the highest honor is to live with integrity under the endless watching sky. In the traditional faith of the Oromo and other Cushitic peoples, nature is not just a backdrop for human activity, it is sacred terrain, alive with spirit and presence. Mountains rise not merely as geological formations, but as dwelling places of power, watched over by ancestral spirits and divine forces. Trees are not just trees. Certain ones, ancient and wide-branched, are considered the very abodes of Waaq's breath. Rivers are not simple watercourses, but sacred arteries flowing with memory, healing, and spiritual presence. Every stone, grove, and valley carries significance, not because of its utility, but because of its spiritual essence. This deep reverence for nature is not poetic embellishment, it is theological foundation. The Oromo believe that Waaq reveals himself through creation, and thus nature must be approached with the same reverence as one would offer to the divine. Sacred groves known as Kalasha or Odaya serve as natural temples. These sites are selected not arbitrarily but through spiritual insight, often confirmed by dreams, visions, or ancestral guidance. They become centers of worship where communities gather to perform rituals, offer prayers, and resolve disputes. No walls enclose these holy places, for the sky itself is the roof under which Waaq listens. Rituals conducted at these sites are designed to align the community with divine and earthly forces. Offerings of milk, honey, or incense are made not as bribes but as acts of gratitude and communion. During ceremonies, elders lead the prayers, calling on Waaq and the spirits of the land to witness and bless the occasion. Children are taught to approach these spaces with silence and respect, for it is believed that careless behavior can offend the spirits and disrupt the harmony of the place. Dancing, chanting, and storytelling are also part of these rituals, linking generations in a shared spiritual memory. Nature is not only sacred, it is relational. Human beings are not rulers of the earth, but participants in its ongoing cycle of life, death, and renewal. There is a deep sense of responsibility to protect and care for the natural world, not because of environmental policies, but because it is morally required by the divine order. When a tree is cut, a ritual of permission and apology may be performed. When a river is crossed, people may pause to pour a libation or whisper a prayer. The earth is not an object to conquer. It is a living partner in the journey of the soul. Violations of nature are not seen as mere ecological errors. They are spiritual offenses. Droughts, illnesses, and misfortune are often interpreted as signs that harmony with nature has been broken. In such cases, diviners are consulted to discern where the imbalance lies, and community rituals are held to restore the sacred bond. This practice affirms a worldview in which the spiritual and ecological are one and the same. To harm nature is to harm oneself, and to care for it is to walk in righteousness before Waaq. This intimate relationship with the natural world fosters a sense of humility and interconnectedness that is often missing in modern systems. It also creates a communal ethic in which land is not privately owned in the Western sense, but shared as a sacred trust. Even among younger generations and diaspora communities, this respect for nature persists, sometimes quietly, in the way elders speak of rain or crops, or in the rituals performed far from ancestral lands. It is a wisdom that remains rooted even when the world around it forgets. In this sacred geography, the earth is not simply where life happens, it is where the divine speaks. Through the rustle of leaves, the flow of water, and the silence of ancient stones, the people hear the voice of Waaq, and in listening, they remember who they are. In the traditional Oromo spiritual worldview, the dead do not disappear into silence. Instead, they transform into ancestral spirits who remain deeply involved in the lives of the living. These spirits, known as Ayana, are not simply memories. They are active presences that offer protection, guidance, and at times, correction. They observe daily actions, intervene in times of crisis, and bless important life events. Families maintain strong ties with these spirits, believing that the wisdom of those who came before continues to shape the path forward. To forget or dishonor them is not just neglect, it is spiritual estrangement. Ancestral spirits are especially honored during communal rituals and personal prayers. Offerings of food, drink, and words of remembrance are given to maintain the bond between the living and the departed. Elders often recount the deeds and teachings of ancestors, ensuring that each generation knows whose shoulders they stand upon. When hardships strike, a child falls ill, crops fail, or conflict erupts, communities do not only turn to logic or material solutions, they also seek the voices of the unseen. The ancestors are believed to hold knowledge that transcends time, and ignoring them invites disorientation, even danger. Divination plays a central role in deciphering the messages of the spirit world. Spiritual specialists, often called Kalu or Wakayu, serve as intermediaries between the physical and spiritual realms. Using ritual tools, sacred chants, and intuitive vision, they interpret signs and deliver messages from the ancestors or other spirits. Dreams are another key medium of communication. A vivid or recurring dream is rarely dismissed. It is carefully analyzed, often with community input, as it may contain warnings, instructions, or confirmations from the spirit realm. People are taught from a young age to listen to their dreams, respect their intuition, and remain spiritually alert. These interactions are not just mystical, they are profoundly ethical. The spirit world enforces a moral structure rooted in honesty, respect, and communal responsibility. Ancestors are believed to reward good character with prosperity and harmony, while punishing selfishness and dishonor with misfortune. Children are raised with the understanding that their actions do not only affect themselves, they ripple through the family, the community, and even the ancestors' realm. This awareness cultivates a deep sense of accountability. To lie, to steal, or to show arrogance is not just a social fault, it is a spiritual offense with far-reaching consequences. In many cases, the community will consult a diviner, not to predict the future, but to resolve ethical dilemmas or conflicts. When two families are in dispute, or when a communal decision must be made, spiritual guidance is sought to ensure fairness and alignment with ancestral values. Truth is believed to surface under spiritual scrutiny. The idea that nothing is truly hidden reinforces honesty and transparency within the community. The fear of ancestral disapproval often weighs heavier than any legal punishment could. Spirit world interactions also help preserve unity. During festivals, births, marriages, and especially funerals, rituals are performed to honor the ancestors and ask for their continued support. These events are not mere formalities. They are spiritual negotiations where blessings are requested and peace is reaffirmed. The presence of the ancestors is invited through chants, dances, and offerings, with the belief that their involvement will ensure success and harmony in the occasion. Even illnesses are sometimes viewed as signs of ancestral neglect or anger, prompting immediate efforts to reconcile through sacrifice or public acknowledgement. In this way, the spirit world is woven into the moral and emotional fabric of daily life. It guides decisions, shapes character, and binds communities in a shared sense of purpose. The ancestors do not vanish. They remain among their people, watching, guiding, and reminding them of who they are and how they must live. In honoring the spirits, the Oromo preserve more than a tradition. They preserve their ethical compass, their identity, and the bridge between the seen and unseen. Waaqeffanna is more than a memory of an ancient god. It is a living, breathing faith still practiced by many Oromo people today. Despite centuries of external religious pressure from both Christianity and Islam, this indigenous spiritual system has endured, often quietly, carried forward through oral traditions, rituals, and the stubborn loyalty of elders who refused to forget. Waaqeffanna is not confined to the past. In parts of Oromia, especially in rural areas, the name of Waaq is still invoked in prayer. Sacred ceremonies are still conducted beneath odaa trees, and community ethics are still shaped by the same divine order that guided the ancestors. This continuity of faith is deeply tied to the Oromo cultural identity. To be Oromo is not only to share a language or history, but also to inherit a spiritual worldview rooted in respect for nature, community, and the divine. Waaqeffanna teaches that spiritual health and social health are inseparable. The principles of the faith are reflected in the Oromo moral code, which emphasizes truth, fairness, and compassion. These values are not abstract. They are embodied in daily life and reinforced by spiritual teachings. In this way, religion and culture are intertwined, forming a complete worldview that informs everything from conflict resolution to child rearing. Central to this cultural spiritual system is the Gadaa, a sophisticated, democratic socio-political institution unique to the Oromo. The Gadaa system structures society into age-based leadership cycles and promotes equality, deliberation, and moral governance. Spirituality is not a separate domain within Gadaa. It is foundational. Leaders are expected to be spiritually grounded, and major Gadaa ceremonies include prayers and offerings to Waaq. The Gadaa is where ethics, law, and faith converge, making Waaqeffanna not only a religious path but a civil one, shaping the way the Oromo organize themselves as a people. Yet, the survival of Waaqeffanna has never been easy. As Christianity spread through the Ethiopian highlands and Islam through the lowlands, Oromo communities found themselves pressured to convert. In many cases, this pressure was not just spiritual, it was political and economic. Access to education, land, or state support often came with the expectation of religious conformity. As a result, many Oromo outwardly adopted new religions while quietly maintaining their indigenous practices at home or in secret gatherings. The sacred Oda trees remained, but their meanings were whispered rather than declared. Modern challenges persist. Urbanization, migration, and the dominance of world religions continue to threaten the visibility of Waaqeffanna. Young people raised in cities often grow up disconnected from the rituals and spaces that once anchored their spirituality. Formal education systems rarely include indigenous knowledge, and public discourse often ignores or marginalizes traditional beliefs. Even within Oromo communities, debates emerge over how to balance cultural preservation with modern identity. Some view Waaqeffanna as backward, while others see it as a source of pride and resistance, a spiritual declaration of cultural autonomy. Despite this, there is a growing movement to reclaim and revitalize Waaqeffanna. Oromo scholars, artists, and spiritual leaders are working to document rituals, protect sacred sites, and educate younger generations. Festivals honoring Waaq have seen resurgence, and traditional ceremonies are being reintroduced into public life. This revival is not about rejecting other religions, but about honoring the root. It is about remembering a God who never abandoned his people, even when the world tried to erase him. It is about returning to a worldview that sees divinity in the sky, the soil, and the soul. Waaqeffanna lives on, not just in rituals, but in the moral fabric of a people who still speak Waaq's name. It is a testament to spiritual resilience, cultural strength, and the enduring belief that even in silence, the sky god still listens. Ethiopia's spiritual landscape is vast and complex, but beneath the layers of empire, scripture, and foreign faiths lies a more ancient voice, one rooted in the sky, the soil, and the soul of the land. The belief in Waaq, the god above the sky, carries a wisdom too profound to be dismissed as primitive or forgotten. It reflects a world where the divine is not distant, but woven into every river's path and every tree's whisper. This is not merely religion, it is a philosophy of life, born from the earth and passed from elder to child through the breath of memory. Waaqeffanna and the indigenous faith systems of the Oromo people stand as living proof that Africa's spiritual heritage did not begin with colonial contact or imported dogmas. These traditions have shaped communities, sustained moral order, and inspired ecological reverence for generations. They remind us that spirituality does not have to be mediated by buildings or books. It can live in the open air, in ancestral stories, and in the courage to remember. To explore Ethiopia's indigenous faith is not to dig up something buried, but to reawaken something still beating quietly beneath the noise of modernity. If this journey has stirred something in you, a sense of curiosity, a deeper respect, or a hunger to learn more, let that feeling guide you further. Add your voice to the call for remembrance. Share this video with someone who's never heard of Waaq. Leave a comment about what surprised you, challenged you, or inspired you. And if you believe that ancient truths deserve a future, hit the like button and subscribe. Let's make sure stories like this rise again, not in dusty books, but in the minds and hearts of those willing to listen. Thank you for walking this path with us, for lending your time and your attention to a story too often overlooked. The sky is vast, and so is the wisdom it holds. Until next time, may the spirit of Waaq guide your steps and open your eyes to the sacred in all things.